Hello, welcome you again to lecture series in political theory. I am Professor H. Srikanth. In my last YouTube lecture, I explained Horkheimer and Adorno's theory of a culture industry. In this lecture, I will be speaking to you about the idea of a one-dimensional man, propounded by another well-known theoretician of Frankfurt School, that is Herbert Marcuse. Herbert Marcuse is a German philosopher, social theorist, and political activist. He was born in a Jewish family in Germany in 1898. He worked for the German army in the First World War. After the war, he left the army and pursued his academic interest. He finished his PhD in literature in 1922. Later, he studied philosophy under Heidegger, the controversial German philosopher, who in his later part of life ended up as a staunch supporter of fascism. Marcuse joined the Institute of Social Research in 1933. But within a year, because of the Nazi threats, he was compelled to emigrate to the USA. During the Second World War, he served the US government. After the war, he returned to academics. He focused his studies on Hegel and early works of Marx. He attempted to synthesize phenomenology, existentialism, and Marxism. His major works include Eros and Civilization, 1955, Soviet Marxism, 1958, One-Dimensional Man, 1964, Repressive Tolerance, 1965, An Essay on Liberation, 1969, and Counter-Revolution and Revolt, 1972. He became very popular during the student movement in the USA and influenced the New Left movement in America and Europe in the late 60s. He was adored as one of the three inspirational or influential M's, that is Marx, Mao, and Marcuse. Although Marcuse has been credited for his ideas on many subjects, he is remembered the most for his work One-Dimensional Man, where he came out with an indictment of the social order of the advanced industrial societies. In this work, he threw light on the decay of liberal political institutions and decline of liberal ideas of pluralism and humanism. He argues that totalitarianism is not confined only to countries like Italy and Germany, which had witnessed despotic rule under Hitler or Mussolini. Totalitarian tendencies have become endemic even in the so-called liberal capitalist countries, which have the parliament and which hold periodic elections. Here, totalitarianism works through the economic and technical coordination and through the manipulation of people's needs by vested interests. With the development of state monopoly capitalism, Marcuse opines, democracy becomes a smokescreen for manipulating the people through new forms of social control. Development of welfare or warfare states give birth to a new variety of totalitarianism. Here, technological rationalism becomes an ideology and tool for social domination and social cohesion. As technology spreads, totalitarianism percolates even to the developed and to pre-industrial areas of the world. Long back, Marx showed how consumption and production are related in the capitalist mode of production. Capitalist production requires continuous reproduction of consumer needs. Advanced capitalist society makes it possible through the creation of false needs, integrating the individuals into the existing system of production and consumption. The people are forced to become a part of the consumerist society, which compel them to consume beyond their real needs. The market introduces various gadgets, devices, instruments, engines, etc., and forces the people to possess, consume, handle, and renew them. The products indoctrinate and manipulate and promote false consciousness. Possession of things becomes a matter of social prestige. As the people start thinking, I consume, therefore I am. Mass media, advertising, new industrial management techniques, and contemporary modes of thought reproduce these consumerist values. Consumerism makes buying a sort of inescapable biological need. By promoting values and habits that bind the consumers to the producers and through them to the capitalist system, state monopoly capitalism establishes one-dimensional society. One-dimensional society can be distinguished from class societies. In class societies, the values, behavior, and interests of the people differ based on one's class background. In contrast, in a one-dimensional society, class differences apparently disappear. Everyone gets addicted to same TV programs, films, newspapers, and periodicals. Even language that the people speak becomes stereotyped. The worker and the boss enjoy same TV programs and movies. A middle class girl wears the dress of the rich lady. The worker also buys a car or owns a TV. The people relax, have fun, behave and consume as directed by the advertisements. Everyone loves and hates what others love and hate. Political actors and media persons promote one-dimensional thought by popularizing self-validating hypotheses. Consequently, the ideology of false consciousness penetrates deep into the interior of human personality. The people stop thinking and acting rationally. They passively accept social domination without their knowledge. Social domination imposed by the forces of integration eliminates the possibilities of negation, critique, and opposition. The society witnesses the rise of one-dimensional universe of thought and behavior, wherein the ability of critical thinking and oppositional behavior disappear. Without his knowledge, the individual gets swallowed up in totality. Man becomes a slave of the industrial system and learns to remain docile and adjusting. Individual is no longer a unit of resistance and autonomy. Bereft of human essence, independent thought and judgment, man reproduces values and behavior consistent with the interests of the dominant classes. Man in one-dimensional society becomes an alienated individual who is not aware of his own estrangement. Okay, it happens to all ordinary people. But what about the working class? Viewed by Marxists as the most revolutionary class, capable of replacing the exploitative capitalist system by a socialist order. You know, Marx also spoke about commodity fetishism that creates the illusion of equality and fairness in the capitalist process of production and exchange. Marx believed that the working class, through its own experience and struggle, acquires revolutionary consciousness and overcomes the false consciousness imposed on them by the bourgeois class. Later, Lenin spoke about bourgeoisification of a section of the working class who gets corrupted during the imperialist phase. But Marcuse believes that the emergence of welfare and warfare states corrupt the working class to such an extent that the working class as a whole ceases to be a revolutionary force. It is not that the workers are not exploited in these late capitalist societies. One dimensional society cannot eliminate class differences or class exploitation. It only masquerades inequalities, misery, and injustice, and so the preservation of the establishment. Exploitation of the working class becomes very refined. The monopoly state enforces a compromise between the monopolies and the trade unions and corrupts the working class by imposing false needs and making them run after them. Welfare state creates the illusion that the system is fair and neutral. Under its influence, the workers start talking of a national purpose and make common cause with the imperialists, as was the case during the Vietnam War, when the workers helped the war industries produce bombs and missiles which were used against the workers and peasants fighting for socialism in Vietnam. Marcuse argues that in one-dimensional society, class consciousness gets blunted and the possibility of change through socialist revolution becomes bleak. The proletariat who are de-revolutionized are no longer capable of acting as agents of historical progress. As internal contradictions, which Marx believed no longer operate, the working class is no longer capable of leading the socialist revolution. As the entire system is rotten from within, Marcuse believes it has to be negated from outside. If the working class is incapable of taking on the capitalist system, then who else can take this responsibility? Marcuse answers, only those who do not share the repressive needs of bourgeoisie can fight against the system. Initially, he was very excited to see anti-imperialist movements taking place in different parts of the globe at that time and believed in the revolutionary ability of the peasantry in the colonial countries. Peasants have nothing to lose but everything to gain. However, after witnessing the black and the students' movements in the US, Marcuse recognized ethnic minority, ghetto population, unemployed, youths and students, and also conformist intelligentsia as the potential forces against a one-dimensional society. He openly supported and took part in the students and peace movements of 1960s. Marcuse had reservations against the Soviet model of development and became skeptical of Marxism-Leninism. He looks for other possible models of socialism. The book One Dimensional Man does not say much about the alternatives. Marcuse explores the alternatives in his book titled Liberation from the Affluent Society. In this book, he says, at this stage, the question is no longer how can the individual satisfy his own needs without hurting others, but how can he satisfy his needs without hurting himself, without reproducing his dependence on an exploitative apparatus, and without perpetuating his servitude. Marcuse is critical of positivism, which in the name of objectivity preaches the status quo. He believes that when the so-called reality principle upheld by the positivists upholds the status quo, imagination becomes the real critical power, capable of inspiring the people to change. For him, utopia is not a bad word. Utopia is a synonym for true realism. Utopia bridges the gap between possibility and reality, art and politics, and projection and action. It imparts revolutionary consciousness and opens up the scope for creativity and critical action. He says, fantasy builds the bridge between the irreconcilable demands of object and subject, the extroversion and introversion. He looks for the establishment of a free society where the systems of servitude are no longer present. He looks for a new man with new needs, goals and satisfactions. Redefining the idea of freedom, he says, economic freedom would mean freedom from the economy. How can I be free if I am controlled by economy? Freedom from being controlled by economic forces and relationships. Can I be free if I am controlled by my employer? Freedom from the daily struggles for existence. Can I say I am free if I am concerned about the rising prices and worried about my next month paycheck? And freedom from earning a living. Can I say I'm free if I have to look for employment for a living? Similarly, he defines political freedom as freedom from politics over which we have no control. Likewise, to him, intellectual freedom would mean the restoration of an individual thought, now absorbed by mass communication and indoctrination. And this intellectual freedom also means abolition of public opinion, quote unquote, together with its makers. You know, what we think as personal opinion is actually the so-called public opinion thrust upon us by media and other organized information channels. Marcuse, therefore, advocates a socialism of a different kind, where life is considered as an end in itself, not a means for some end. Marcuse aspires for a new man who rejects performance principle, which forces man to prove that he is strong and successful person. He looks for a man who rids himself of aggressiveness and brutality inherent in the established societies. Marcuse's man is opposed to acts of war and suffering, and has a good conscience of joy and pleasure. Marcuse has a broad view of liberation. In his view, liberation involves organic, instinctual, biological changes along with political and social changes. It seeks total reconstruction of internal and external spaces of privacy. It stands for individual autonomy, tranquility, and elimination of noise. It is opposed to captured audience, enforced togetherness, pollution, ugliness, and capitalist industrialization and repressiveness. Beautiful indeed. But how can we make this utopia a reality? Does Marcuse believe that this utopia can be achieved through peaceful means? No. According to him, not possible. He admits that the traditional notions of tolerance taught us to be subservient to the system and its masters. One can get rid of this existing mess only through violence. Of course, he distinguishes between revolutionary violence and reactionary violence and advocates the need for revolutionary violence to break away with the system. Good up to this, but he leaves many questions unanswered. How can one organize the revolution that he speaks of? If the working class is no more a revolutionary class, who else would lead this revolution to its logical end? How do the agents of change confront the combined power of the monopoly, media, and war machinery. Is the revolution that he advocates becomes possible without a revolutionary party? Marcuse is no doubt a progressive intellectual, but he is no Lenin or Mao. He has no answers to all our queries. Still, he asks us to dream. He says, I do not know, but let us dream, let us explore, so that our future may open up new avenues and new possibilities and new ways for creating an alternative society which gives birth to a new man. I may not be in agreement with every idea that Herbert Marcuse proposes, but definitely I go for his vision of man. Revolution is not just about reconstituting political and economic structures. Revolution makes little sense if it fails to create a new man, freed from all the material and psychological bondages that make him the slave of the affluent society. Can we become utopians in Marcusean sense? I'll leave it to you to think about it. I hope I made some sense to you. If you understood and enjoyed the lecture, then please like and subscribe to this channel, and also inform like-minded friends to listen to my YouTube lectures. If you have any comments and suggestions, you please express the same in the comment section. I'll be back soon with a new lecture on a new topic. Bye for now. Thank you very much.